In the name of Allah, most compassionate, most merciful. Here again, I am with you, continuing with literary stylistics. As I said, in this part, in the second part of the course, we are going to take as an example of one of the many approaches within literary stylistics. We are going to go through the approach suggested by Geoffrey Leach and Meek Short, 1981. Now, the definition of literary stylistics by Geoffrey Leach and Meek Short is not different from the previous definitions we have gone through in part 1. There is always a study of style. There is always reference to linguist. In style, I study the stylistic feature. I depict the linguistic item which is used idiosyncratically, which is repeated too much in the text. Then I use linguistic description to the linguistic theory to describe this stylistic feature. And also, of course, I will interpret this stylistic feature to see what meaning it conveys. As a result, it's going to enhance my understanding of the language and the message and the meaning of the work written by the author. Leach and Short state that literary stylistics has the goal of explaining the relation between language and artistic function. Two important questions revolve in literary stylistics, namely how and why. So these how and why do not exist in linguistic stylistics. They are in literary stylistics because in literary stylistics we are concerned with meaning, with interpretation. Why does the writer uses this how? How it refers to the stylistic feature, the language the writer has used, and why here the meaning. Why? What function is conveyed through this stylistic feature? They consider that literary stylistics is a relational concept in which there is a relation between the linguistic description and aesthetic appreciation. So here aesthetic appreciation can contain our evaluation of the literary text, of the novel, the short story, poem, drama, judgment in with the support of the linguistic description. Now, how I define or I take or I depict a stylistic feature from the text. So here there are Leach and Short say or state that there are two criteria. If this feature is very frequent in the text, more frequent, or if this feature is less frequent in the text, then it is considered taken as a stylistic feature to be studied. So they say there should be a focus on the features which are more frequent or less frequent features in comparison with the actual use of that language. For example, we have seen that or scholars have depicted in one of the book's novels written by Ernest Hemingway, there is a stylistic feature which lies in his overuse of short sentences. So these short sentences in his novel, they are frequently used in the text, which we are going to consider them as a stylistic feature. So, in combining between the linguistic description and aesthetic evaluation, then I say that the linguistic description is very important to support my evaluation and judgment about the literary text. It gives more scientificity, if you can say, more credibility to my evaluation. And like this, I escape from intuitive interpretation. Intuitive interpretation. So, any aesthetic judgment must be accompanied or supported with referable linguistic features from the text. That means I take a linguistic evidence. Linguistic evidence here I refer, or Leach and Short refer to the stylistic feature. The stylistic feature is considered as an evidence to my judgment, to my evaluation to the literary text. For example, there is the playwright, the British playwright, postmodern British playwright Edward Bond. Sorry. In one of his plays titled Lear, he conveys a political message in which he promotes the importance of freedom and truth. Now, how? So this is the if we can say the why, the answer of why. How is this idea conveyed? Through the linguistic evidence, through the stylistic feature, metaphor. It was highly frequently used in the text, so we take it as a stylistic feature. And in the analysis of these metaphors, we have seen that there is meaning behind it, in which the playwright Edward Bond is conveying the meaning, the theme of freedom and truth. So this is the why and how. How it refers to the language through metaphor. Why? To convey the meaning of freedom and truth. Now, foregrounding, if we talk about foregrounding, foregrounding is a very important concept in the approach of Leach and Short. Foregrounding, it refers to the stylistic feature. It is the stylistic feature which is apparent in the text. It is the stylistic feature which is the most noticeable in the text. Here we are, it is foregrounded. We are in the case of foregrounded. And they give an example, an analogy to make things clear of a painting, a foreground of a painting. They say that there is a distinction between foreground of a painting and its background. The foreground of a painting is that part of a painting which is at the center and toward the bottom of the canvas. So it is the subject matter of the painting. It is the apparent part. If there is a painting, the element in the painting which is the biggest one, which is at the center, which the first one which my eyes are put on, which catch my the first thing which catches my eye on the painting, it is the most apparent one, and it is the foregrounded, and it is like the stylistic feature. It is the deviant part which becomes especially noticeable or perceptually prominent. Generally, the foregrounded parts can be regarded as the most important of all, of course, because the foregrounded part here we refer to the stylistic feature. They are the most important thing in the text. Here is an illustration of a picture, it's not a painting, two trees. So we see the first one on the left is the biggest one. It is the foregrounded because it is the first one which I see in the painting. It is the most noticeable, apparent, contrary to the second smallest tree, which is at the background. So here it is an analogy with the stylistic feature. The stylistic feature is like this big tree, which is the most noticeable, which is the most apparent in the text. So here it is a case of foregrounding. As an example of foregrounding in a text, this concept to explain it is the stylistic feature. So here they refer with foregrounding, or they mean by foregrounding the stylistic feature that is apparent in the text, that is the most important, that is the one which catches my attention. This is an example of a stylistic feature which shows for the case of foregrounding. It is a short excerpt taken from the novel written by Joseph Conrad, Heart of Darkness, Darkness. Watching a coast as it sleeps by the ship is like thinking about an enigma. There it is before you, smiling, frowning, inviting, grand, mean, insipid, or savage, and always mute with an air of whispering, come and find out. This one was almost featureless, as if still in the making, with an aspect of monotonous grimness. The edge of a colossal jungle, so dark green as to be almost black, fringed with white surf, ran straight like a rule's line, far, far away along a blue sea whose glitter was blurred by a creeping mist. This is a very short excerpt taken from the novel, and if you read a lot this novel, you will see the overuse of simile expressed through these language items like, as if, as, like, and there is, if you read the novel, you can find other items like as though, as if, all this to convey simile. So, because it is frequently used in the text, it is taken as a stylistic feature. So this stylistic feature of simile is foregrounded. So it is the most apparent in the text. It is the one which is going to attract my attention in this text. So here it is a case of foregrounding. Now, foregrounding, so it's not only limited to simile like in this text, but it touches all the aspects of the language and all aspects, levels of the language, namely lexical, grammatical, semantic, phonological, graphological, dialectical, deviation of register, or deviation of historical period. We're going to see these levels in details shortly. Now, what are the manifestations of foregrounding in the literary text? Means, what are the cases of foregrounding? So, foregrounding occurs in deviation, in the case of conversion, deviation from common collocations, parallelism, and repetition. So, deviation, Leach and Short say that deviation is the difference between the normal frequency of a feature and its frequency in the text or corpus. It means that language is used differently from its normal usage in the language, and that means the writer deviates from the normal usage of the language. They state the following functions of deviation, like the writer, of course, the writer of the novel, the poem, the poet, the playwright, makes his language creative. To make his language creative, when he deviates from the rules, from the normal usage of the language, to impress the minds of the readers with unexpected surprise, to focus the mind of the reader on a particular meaning. So the deviant part becomes especially noticeable or perceptually prominent, and this is, of course, a case of foregrounding. The part which is noticeable, apparent, is the foregrounded part. Short gives the following example in which the metaphor is a deviation from the norm of the language use. If you read this sentence taken from the play by William Shakespeare, we read, "Come, we burn daylight." The deviation here is in daylight and burn. Normally, when we burn something concrete. Daylight does not is not something concrete. It is something abstract. So here there is deviation from the norm. Normally, because when we burn something concrete. So here there is a deviation through this metaphor that Shakespeare has constructed or created. This is a case of deviation, and of course to imply a meaning. So this deviation is not put randomly, but it is to imply a particular meaning, of course. The second case of foregrounding is in conversion. Conversion when there is a change in word order. Well, sorry, when I say town crowded, normally we say crowded town. But here there is a conversion between the noun and the adjective, of course, to imply a particular meaning. So it becomes apparent, it is foregrounded. So it is a case of foregrounding. The second case of foregrounding is when there is deviation from common collocation. Here, deviation, it refers to the way how words are combined with other words. And as an example, Leach gives a title of a poem written by Dylan Thomas. The title is A Grief Ago. What is noticeable in this title is in the expression ago. Ago, it is normally or usually is combined with expressions like years ago, an hour ago, a week ago. It means with time which express with expressions which convey time. But here ago is combined to the word grief. So here it is a deviation from a common usage. The use has changed the use of ago and put it in a different collocation or different combination, not with time, but with the word grief. Here, to attract the attention, of course, of the reader, and here to say that here to attract the attention of the reader to the grief, that grief is taken an important part in the life of the poet, that it has taken this deviation with ago. So here the writer with this deviation from common combination, we can say combination or collocation, the writer is implying a different meaning, a special meaning. Another case of foregrounding when there is parallelism, the case of parallel structures. It is found in complex sentences. Short gives the following example in which the structure is held the same in both parts of the sentence. Of course, the lexical items vary. But he was wounded for our transgressions, he was bruised for our iniquities. So this is a case of parallel structure, parallel sentence, but we are not going to take it as a stylistic feature only if it is repeated frequently in the text, like in simile, like in the example of simile, like in the example of the gerund, when it is frequently put in every where in the text, then we decide that it is a stylistic feature. Short sees that the parallel structure incites the reader to search the connection in meaning between the two clauses. Yeah, it facilitates. It means if the first part, some words in the first part are difficult, we can make a parallel meaning or approximate meaning we approximate its meaning with the second part, with the words of the second part. And sometimes, even some words of a clause are difficult, the parallel helps in identifying the meaning of difficult words. In repetition, it is clear. Repetition this is also another case of foregrounding. Repetition creates the case of foregrounding, like in the following example: blow, blow the winter wind. So there is a repetition of the word blow. Of course, this is just a very simple example, but if you repeat it in all many parts in the text, then it is a stylistic feature. Now, the stylistic features, we say that a stylistic feature is basically a linguistic element. It is part of an element in the language. Leach and Short have categorized the stylistic features, put them into categories. We can talk about lexical categories, lexical categories which include nouns, adjectives, verbs, and adverbs, grammatical categories which embody sentence types, sentence complexity, clause types, clause structure, noun phrases, etc. Figures of speech, it includes the grammatical and lexical schemes like anaphora, parallelism, phonological, etc. And the concept of context and cohesion. I'm going to go further and deeply into this last category. But what Leach and Short have suggested, if the stylistic feature, for example, is a verb, We have seen in the example of Leach and not David Crystal and Derek Davy in linguistic stylistics, the gerund. If we take the gerund as a verb, here, so it is a lexical category, it is a verb. So in every Leach and Short, in every stylistic feature in their book Style in Fiction, they suggest guiding and helpful questions which help me to interpret the stylistic feature that I depict from the text. So if it is a verb like the gerund, I read the questions that Leach and Short have put in their book. They are guiding questions which help me in the interpretation and analysis of verbs. If it is adjectives, it's the same. I find guiding questions suggested by Leach and Short, etc. The same with grammatical and lexical schemes, the same with sentence types, the same with context and cohesion. In every stylistic feature, in every category, there are guiding questions. And for my students, you can find a copy of these part of the guiding questions in مكتبة الطلبة. You find a copy in detail, the questions suggested by Leach and Short for each category. So as an example of the guiding questions, if we take verbs like the example of the previous example of gerund, so these questions are, as I said, are suggested by Leach and Short. They are guiding and helpful questions. In answering them, they help me in the interpretation of the verb gerund. For example, do the verbs carry an important part of the meaning? Are they stative, referring to states, or dynamic, referring to actions, events? Do they refer to movements, physical acts, speech acts, psychological states, or activities, perception? Are they transitive, intransitive, linking, etc.? Are they factive or non-factive? And the same with any stylistic feature in every category. Now, if we elaborate more on the idea of concept and cohesion, here I have referred to the work of Mike Halliday, who has extensively elaborated this concept of context and cohesion to explain what do we mean by, of course, the context is what we call the situation, the environment, okay? And according to Mac Halliday, he says that the text is a social event, okay? Because it is created by the society. It is the society, it is the individuals of society who put meaning, who create a particular, who share a particular meaning and convey these meanings and reflect these meanings in the language they use. So the relation between the text and its environment is in constant change. It is always changing. Whenever you change the environment, of course, the text, the features of the text, of course, are going to be affected. Environment, according to Holiday, it can be labeled to as a context of situation, and it is considered as a social construct. It means it is part of the society. As we said, meanings are created by the social system. According to Halliday, it means by the individuals in the society who create these meanings and put them in the language, and then these meanings are transmitted by members of the society through text. So as a result, the text is a primary channel for the transmission of culture. Now, cohesion, it is the act of cohering or uniting or sticking together. It means what? Cohesion is the way how I unite the parts of the text, my parts of the text, how I combine the parts of my paragraph. This is what we call cohesion, using what we call cohesive types. Now, Mark Halliday, I will explain and I elaborate more next now shortly. Mark Halliday explains that cohesion occurs in 4 cases: in reference, ellipsis, conjunction, and lexical organization. So if we go now in detail through them, he suggests the following poem, and through this poem, there is an explanation of all the four types of cohesion, four types of reference, ellipsis, conjunction, and lexical organization are all illustrated through this short poem. Little boy, blue, come blow your horn. The sheep is in the meadow, the cow's in the corn. Where is the boy that looks after the sheep? He's under the haycock, fast asleep. Will you go wake him? No, not I, for if I do, he will be sure to cry. You will have time when you stay alone. You read more again the poem. You will understand it. You will see more. You will understand it clearly later on. Okay, but now I'm just going to focus on the cohesive types, or how I can. How is this poem united? Combined, how the parts of this poem. We start by the first cohesive type, which is called reference. It is defined as an element at one part of the text can be taken as a reference point for something that follows. Like in the poem, we have the boy who look after the sheep. Then, when we finish reading, we see he, him, he. All these refer to the word boy. So this is a case of reference. So I can say that these are what we call cohesive ties. Cohesive ties which tie, which combine, which join the parts of the text and make it coherent, make it meaningful. The second case of combining the parts of the text is the case of ellipsis. It is a positive omission of a clause or part of a clause by saying nothing. For example, if your mom sent you to the supermarket to bring some bread and cheese, when you come back, you only have bread. Then your mom asks you, did you bring bread and cheese? You say, there is only bread. And you keep and stop. There is only bread. This means that you brought only bread. You found only bread. And you did not bring cheese. So the sentence you did not bring cheese, it is understood between your mom and you that you did not bring cheese, even if you did not articulate the sentence. When you say, I brought bread, and you stop, it means that no cheese. I did not find cheese, or I did not bring cheese. But you did not say the second part, but it is understood. It is omitted, but understood between you and your mom. So it becomes a compromise between you and your mother. This is a case of ellipsis. When I omit, when I delete a part of a clause, but the meaning is there and it is understood by both parts of the speech or by both interlocutors. Okay? So the structure is left and fill, but the sense exists as a kind of a compromise between sender and receiver. In the example given by Holiday, there is an illustration of ellipsis when we read not I, for I will not wake him. If we return to the poem, we read in the fifth line, will you go wake him? No, not I. Not I. If you read, will you go wake him? No, not I. Not I is a case of ellipsis. Instead of saying no, I will not wake him, we omit all this sentence and we say no, not I. This is a case of ellipsis, omission, but the meaning is still there and understood by both parts of the conversation. 3. As a cohesive type, when there is the case of conjunction. Here, conjunction is expressed through these connectives like and, or, yet, than, so, but. Okay? So, a clause or a clause complex is related to what follows by one or other specific set of semantic relations. It manifests in categories such as when oppositions, clarifications, addition, variation expressed by and, etc. The last cohesive tie, which combines the parts of the text, is what we call lexical cohesion. It is a semantic relation that holds among a group of words within a particular text. It means you have got a text and words, though they are different, but they belong to the same semantic field. And this relation between these different words can be a relation of synonymy or, for example, relation of opposition or other types of relations, of course. Here in the poem, if we look to first, there is a reiteration of the word sheep. Sheep is repeated in line 1 and line 2. Now, in the poem, when we read cow and sheep, we return to the poem. The sheep is in the meadow, the cow is in the corn. So we have got, there is a relation between the word sheep, semantic relation, and the word cow. They refer, for example, to animals. They belong to the same semantic field. So this is a case, what we call, so there is a relation between cow and sheep. It is a relation of animals, they denote animals. So this is a case of lexical cohesion, for example. Or when we say wake relates to asleep. We read in the fourth line, he is under the haycock, fast asleep. Will you go wake him? No, not I. So we can say that there is a relation of opposition between asleep and wake. Of course, this is just a basic example to illustrate how you can depict the relation between different words within a text, whether it is a relation of reiteration, relation of synonymy, or relation of oppositeness. Okay? Or the case of corn, which relates to the meadow. So this is the end of the approach of Geoffrey Leach and Mick Short, who represent literary stylistics. See you in part 3, the last part in literary stylistics, where we see other topics included within the realm of literary stylistics. Goodbye. Thank you.